spring loaded? The main reason is because I don't like to tap the yoke on the transmissions. I can use any transmission I want, and once I build this drive shaft like this, then it's built this way forever, and I can take it from transmission to transmission to transmission. And in Derby, you break transmissions. So, you know, here is a picture of kind of a normal standard drive shaft. Okay. And here would be where your kind of transmission comes up over here. Sorry for my poor art. As the car starts to bend upwards, it's going to put a lot of tension on the tail shaft of your transmission, and it also, you know, could cause your transmission to bend, or you know, your drive shaft could bend, your transmission could snap, the bell housing could, you know, break off the bolts, you know, on the back of the motor. And so a lot of things can happen. So a sliding drive shaft is something kind of like this. And again, I apologize for my artwork. And then there would be a shaft in the middle here. It could be a square. It could be one of those farm implement ones that's kind of a triangle like that. And this can slide inside of the two ends of the shaft, and so it can compress, you know. So as your car bends, you know, this shaft slides inside and relieves that tension on your transmission by shortening itself. So that's technology that's used in Derby quite a bit, and normally kind of the way that they attach these is on the back of your tail shaft here. They'll tap a spot kind of where they can bolt a yoke in. So back of your transmission has a yoke that looks like this, and that's what your shaft, your drive shaft is going to plug into. Normally it just slides in there, and it's just held in there. You know, in this instance, it's held in there with tension. Here's your rear end carrier. It has nowhere to go because everything, this is bolted in, this is bolted in, and so it just kind of sits in there, just slides in there. With a sliding drive shaft, though, you know, if this slides backwards, this is just going to slide out of the back of the transmission tail shaft. So what a lot of guys do is they'll tap, and they'll put a place where a bolt can go in there, and then they'll tap the drive shaft yoke as well. They'll basically bolt this to this. These will become married together, and then that way it's not going to fall out of the transmission. Now, I don't like to do that because I want to just be able to grab any, you know, Turbo 350, Turbo 400 transmission and just put this drive shaft in there and go and be done. So what I do is called a spring-loaded sliding drive shaft. So it's almost exactly the same as the drive shaft that you see up here that has a bolt attaching it to the transmission. The only difference is here's your sliding shaft, and here is some spring seats on either side, and then you will have a spring that goes in the middle. The shaft goes inside of the spring, and that tension is what, that spring tension is what keeps this yoke plugged into the back of your transmission. So this can still compress Obviously, you don't want to have too strong of a spring because, you know, then that's still applying, you know, a lot of pressure against the back of your transmission. But a 100-pound spring or so is not a big deal. And that'll still compress as the car folds, but it will keep this from falling out of the back, and you don't have to put bolts in anything, nothing screws in. You can actually just take this drive shaft from you know, car to car, transmission to transmission, whatever you want to do. So that is what we're building today. I already have one, but it's getting a little long in the tooth and it's a little heavy, and so we're gonna make a better version. So we'll take these plans down into the garage, and we'll get started on that. Okay, we're back in the shop here, and we're starting on our sliding drive shaft today. So first thing we need is a donor drive shaft, and this one is perfect because I got it for free. It's smashed in the middle, but that's okay because we're going to cut the smash out of it and turn it into our sliding drive shaft. So here's the spring that we're going to use. This is a 100-pound spring, and this should just be perfect because we're just going to cut just enough space so that we can roughly keep the drive shaft about the same length. I find that's the best way to go. Obviously, if you want to make one that's perfect for your driveline setup, you're going to want to measure from the back of the transmission tail to where it's going to attach to your rear end. So, but we don't need to do that right now. So we're just going to do a few marks here. All right, so our bent piece is gone out of the way. So now we have these two pieces, which obviously need to be trued up, which we will do. All right, so we got our two pieces made. Now on either end is going to go a plate. With this plate, inside of that plate is going to have a square cut. That square is going to allow for this 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch rod to slide inside of there. Which when the drive shaft's turning, that square is going to allow this to turn, but it's going to be able to compress with the larger rod being able to slide along the inside of this larger drive shaft. So first thing we got to do is going to be the rough length of our drive shaft. We're just eyeballing it at this point. I'm going to take this rod and cut a piece of it down. This thing is a beast. It is heavy. Okay, we got these ugly plates cleaned up, and we are ready to start the next phase. So as you may remember, we kept this little guy here to use as our guide for the drive shaft, which is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to mark on here Hopefully you can see this. We're gonna mark on here. Crappy markings. Don't mind saying. Actually, let's measure that. It should be 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. On the inside. Yep, 1.5 inches. And 1.5 inches. Okay. And then if we do this one right, we'll use this one to cut this piece here. So, the way that we're gonna do this is I'm actually gonna cut like this, and we're gonna cut like this. All right. Scored enough. Now we're probably gonna have to clean up these edges, which we will. Okay. Yep. Okay. So remember how we had our little piece there? Let's take that little piece now. These might still be a little hot. They are. Yeah, I should just find myself a nice pair of gloves for the shop, but I can never seem to find a pair that I like. I don't know, maybe if somebody's watching and has a good pair that they can suggest. Okay, so remember, we want this to be really snug because when our shaft turns, this is what our shaft turning is going to be like, but this piece is still going to be able to slide in and out of there like that. 1/4 inch, there's no way that that is going to be strong enough to withstand the centrifugal pressure or the centrifugal force. I don't even know what we would call that, but all right. Go that way with it. All right. See, now you see that's how that's gonna go there. Want to be pretty snug. Okay. Bring it over here because we're gonna tack weld it up. Okay. Okay, now I've got 2 of these welded together. These are going to be the main receivers for the shaft. Now I'm just going to clean them up, and we'll get ready to mount them on the ends of our round drive shaft pieces. So let's do that now. Okay, so when we're all set and done here, we have 2 pieces here that should freely slide down our shaft like so. little bit more filing work to do perhaps, but these are pretty good considering we didn't do them with a plasma cutter or you know, any kind of CNC table or anything like that. And when you're doing stuff on a budget, well, that's the way they need to go. And then that's going to allow you, see, this shaft will still turn using these extra steps just to make sure that this doesn't twist or that these don't, you know, pop off or anything like that. That's what this angle iron is for. That's what this strap is for. Okay, we got these welded on nicely. The other thing that I forgot to mention earlier about these angle iron pieces is that they're going to reduce movement in this direction. So because you've got a little bit longer receiver, so it's just going to reduce the amount of movement. You only want this thing to move two ways. You only want it to move this way, and you only want it to rotate. Alright, guess it's all welded in. Here's what they look like. No one will ever accuse them of being pretty, but they do exactly what they're supposed to do, which is slide freely up and down this shaft. And once we get some grease on these, that's just going to be smooth as can be. Okay? So now that we've got those strengthened and fitted nicely to the shaft, we're going to actually take these and I'm going to weld them to our drive shaft. So I'll do that next. All right. I have gotten the first one welded on. As you can see, there we go. Set it where I want it here. It's just gonna be probably about here. And I'm just gonna weld it solid to this shaft. And then once I put that in there, then I'll weld this solid like I have done here. This will be permanently married to this, but if we ever want to take it apart to take the spring out, replace the spring or whatever, we'll still be able to completely slide it out here. But this, doing it this way, will keep it from ever going too far into that part of the drive shaft or too far back into this part of the drive shaft. So I'm going to weld this up, and then I'm going to take this assembly and I'm going to weld it to here, and let's see how that goes. All right, drive shaft. Bottom portion is welded in. At this point, we have a functional sliding drive shaft at this point. This is a sliding, as you can see, it's not greased or anything. Still have some adjustments to make, but that is what you want it to do. Okay, here we are again. I had a change of heart. I cut these to be spring seats, but honestly, I don't think I'm gonna put these on yet until I know exactly what spring I want to use. I have a few different choices, and I may even go buy one that I like even better. So I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit. I've welded these pieces of strap on the sides just because of my fear that this might twist. Just get any spatter out of these than I might have. That guy off there. Come here, Mr. 100-pounder. And so you're in the show, your car starts to bend, and this is going to compress as the car bends, allowing you to not break your car for a little longer, hopefully. Well, actually, do that. Move this back a little bit, little fella, and there you have it. It is not pretty. I may paint it, I don't know. This is gonna get some grease so it'll slide real nice. And like I said, I may put these spring seats on here just so they can hold the spring in place. I may not. Once I decide what spring I want for sure. So, a couple things, cost-wise. You know, compared to a Narrat slide, I mean, there's really no comparison. Let me go on the record and say, if you're looking at buying a sliding drive shaft from a derby fabricator like Narrat or Elvis Thumb or one of those guys, this is not ever going to compare to that. I'm not putting this video out there to even try to compare to that. The work that those guys do is amazing. But from a cost perspective, a Narrat slider is, I don't know what they're going for today. I think they're going for like 300 bucks. This donor drive shaft was free. I found this on Facebook Marketplace, this 100-pound spring for 10 bucks. The rod was the most expensive piece. I went to Metal Supermarkets and I got that for $48. As you can see, it was a piece that they cut me a deal on. It was a long piece. I didn't even need the whole thing. I could probably make another 2 drive shafts out of that. So, a rod half the size, call it 30 bucks. A little bit of welding wire, a few cutting wheels. I think they're going at Harbor Freight for 5 bucks for 10 almost every month. The other piece I did. I got these at Home Depot, which you shouldn't do. It's usually not the best price for steel, but I think these 2 pieces cost me about 20 bucks. And some time. I think I started at 10. It's getting close to 5 o'clock now, so I don't know. I'd say all in, you're less than 100 bucks. For a sliding drive shaft. Now you don't have to do the spring thing. You know, if you've got a yoke in the back here that's tapped so that it doesn't slide out, then, you know, you can eliminate this spring as well. You know, again, not any kind of comparison to anything that's a professionally built, you know, derby drive shaft, okay? But it is going to give you some compression, which is going to help you stay in the heat longer. It's not balanced. It's probably going to wobble like hell. You're going to want to use Loctite, you know, on everything that you bolt together with this, because the vibration as you're driving out there, you know, it's already in a derby. There's already enough vibration and shakiness. You're not going to feel this in the heat when you're driving, but anything that you bolt in, the vibration, if it's not, you know, if you don't Loctite it in there, you know, you could have nuts come off. You know, you could have, I've had, on that old one there, just playing around, I had a couple of the nuts come off my torque converter. So make sure if you're going to use something like this, that you just use Loctite on everything. And, you know, it worked. I mean, this is tried and true. I use this in actual derbies. I'll see if I can find a picture and throw it in the video, but this works. Like I said, it's super heavy duty. If I did anything different in the future, even on this one, is that 1.5 inch rod is still too big. You know, I could probably do 1 inch, and it would be plenty, and it would also help reduce the weight. So this will be the drive shaft for the upcoming season. You guys let me know what you think. You know, tell me if it's crap. I mean, tell me if you think it's gonna break. You know, I mean, tell me what you think of it. How you hate it, love it, whatever. I don't know. We'll see you on the next one. Ciao.